What if I told you that the most powerful response after she walks away is no response at all? No reaching out, no explanations, no emotional outbursts, just calm, intentional silence. Not to manipulate, but to reclaim your energy and worth. While most men chase, hoping to fix what's broken, the real power lies in doing nothing. True strength isn't loud, it's steady, centered, and unbothered. This is the story of a man who gave everything, his time, love, and loyalty, and when she left without hesitation, he didn't collapse. He didn't plead. He chose stillness, not as a tactic, but as a declaration. I don't need to convince anyone of my value. In that silence, he didn't disappear, he transformed. Not for her, but for himself. Because the truth is, what shakes a woman the most isn't your words, it's your absence. That void she can't fill. That quiet confidence that lingers louder than any message you could have sent. When you stop proving yourself to someone who took you for granted, something shifts. She starts to feel the weight of what she lost. And you rise. So if you're done giving energy to someone who never valued it, this is your turning point. We don't chase, we rebuild. And it all starts with silence. If this hits home, drop a comment. I choose peace over pursuit. Subscribe for more truth, strength, and clarity. Number 1. The echo of silence. Most men panic when she pulls away. They flood her phone. They explain, beg, plead. They make noise, thinking it will bring her back. But noise doesn't bring power. Silence does, and very few men understand that. When you choose silence, you're not ignoring her. You're rejecting the game. You're stepping away from the need to be understood, validated, or chosen. And that silence, it doesn't fade into the background. It hits her like thunder. At first, she acts unaffected. She posts selfies, laughs louder in public. She wants to show you she's fine. But inside, questions start to creep in. Why hasn't he reached out? Is he with someone else? Did he really move on that fast? See, women are tuned into energy. They can feel the shift when your attention disappears and your validation goes quiet. Curiosity kicks in, and curiosity is dangerous because it opens the door to regret. She starts checking your social media, watches to see if you viewed her story, waits for a message that never comes. And every hour of your silence becomes a mirror she wasn't ready to face. She thought she knew how this would play out, that you'd chase like the rest. But instead of reacting, you vanished into your mission, your purpose, your power. Now she's left with something far more unsettling than anger. Uncertainty, because you're no longer predictable. You're no longer hers. You've become a mystery, and that, my friend, is magnetic. True stoicism isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It holds the line. It controls the impulse. It doesn't chase chaos. It walks away from it. When you stay calm in the face of rejection, when you don't try to win her back, you flip the power dynamic completely. She doesn't feel like she won. She feels like she lost something she can't quite understand anymore. And that's the message your silence sends. Not bitterness, not manipulation, just calm control. Because sometimes the loudest message is the one you never say. Number 2, the mind game she didn't see coming. She thought she had it figured out. Pull away and you'd come running. Go cold and you'd heat up. It worked before. Why wouldn't it now? That's the script she knows. It's what most guys follow, but not you. You didn't panic. You didn't explain. You didn't chase. You did something far more powerful. You disappeared, quietly, without drama, without closure. And that broke the pattern. Psychologists call it a pattern interrupt. She expected a scene, a flood of messages, maybe even anger. What she got instead was your absence, and that silence, it rattled her. Now her brain doesn't know what to do. Why didn't he respond? Was I not worth it? Did I just lose a man who actually mattered? She starts questioning the game because the rules don't work on you. She's not in control anymore. You are. And that shift, it's subtle, but it's powerful. See, you're not trying to manipulate. You're not playing chess with her feelings. You're simply not playing at all. You're living. You're focused. You're emotionally untouchable. And that scares her because when a woman can't predict you, can't pull you in, can't control the rhythm, she doesn't feel empowered. She feels exposed. This is where stoicism shines. You didn't react. You didn't explain your worth. You mastered your emotions so well that hers started to unravel. Now she's playing scenes in her head that never happened, replaying your last conversation, looking for signs, digging for meaning, and finding none. Why? Because you left her with the one thing she didn't prepare for, a story with no ending, no goodbye, no, I still care, just silence. And that silence, it echoes louder than any word ever could. She may not admit it, but deep down, she's wondering if letting go of you was the biggest mistake she's made. You didn't ghost her, you outgrew her. Not because you're cold, but because peace means more to you than proving anything. And that's the mind game she never expected to lose. Number 3, rejection is redirection. She said it was over. Maybe she ghosted you. Maybe she told you straight to your face. Either way, it hurt deep and real. You felt it in your chest, in your gut, in the silence that followed. Rejection shakes your foundation. You question your worth. You question your time. You question who you even are. But here's what Stoicism teaches. It's not what happens to you that defines you, it's what you do with it. And rejection, it's not the end. It's a redirection, a brutal shove away from what you thought you needed toward what you truly need, yourself. You thought she was your peace, but maybe she was your distraction. You thought she completed you, but maybe she was just filling a void you were afraid to face. The pain is real. The heartbreak is raw, but that pain, it's your fire, your forge. You don't build strength in comfort. You build it in chaos. When the world breaks you open, you either collapse or you rebuild. This is your moment, your reset. Let the illusion die. Let go of the fantasy that she was the one. Accept the truth. Some rejections are actually blessings in disguise. Now you don't beg for attention. Now you don't settle for crumbs. Now you don't chase someone who walked away without hesitation. This is the pivot point where weakness becomes wisdom, where heartbreak becomes armor. You stop trying to win her back and start winning yourself back. You get focused, you get disciplined, you stop scrolling and start lifting, you stop complaining and start building, you move in silence, not to prove anything, but because you no longer have anything to prove. She thinks she rejected you, but she didn't break you, she revealed you, because the man she walked away from was only the beginning. Now you're becoming the man who doesn't need validation to know his worth. That version of you, the focused, detached, unshakable version, is the one she'll never see again. Not because you're hiding, but because you've evolved. And evolution doesn't chase, it rises. Number 4, the weight of regret. She thought leaving you would be easy, that you'd cry for a while, maybe beg, maybe spiral, then fade into the background like every other man. But you didn't. You went silent. Not angry, not bitter, just still. Intentional, powerful. The kind of silence that doesn't scream but shakes something deep inside her. At first she feels free, like she made the right choice. No drama, no guilt. But time has a way of revealing the truth because silence without closure turns into a mirror and she can't stop staring at it. She replays your last words, scrolls through old photos, rereads messages she once ignored. Suddenly, your absence feels heavier than your presence ever did. She expected you to chase, to fight for her, to give her ego what it was used to. But you didn't play that game. You chose calm. You chose peace. You walked away like a man who values his energy. And now, the silence grows louder each day. Not hearing from you becomes a sound she can't escape, because it says something no words ever could. I'm not coming back. Her ego starts to starve. It fed off your attention. Now it's empty. And that void, it starts to ache. She wanted a reaction. She got detachment. She wanted a performance. You gave her stillness. She wanted control. Now she has silence. And that silence is the only voice she hears. Because real strength doesn't announce itself. It moves quietly, with certainty. You didn't explain. You didn't justify. You simply let her go. And when the noise of the world dies down, when the attention fades, when no one's chasing her anymore, that's when the regret settles in. Not because you punished her, but because you didn't. You didn't fight. You didn't try to prove your worth. You just moved forward. And that's what haunts her most. Not your presence, but your absence. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You don't need her to understand. Regret is hers to carry, and silence is what delivered it. Number 5, the shift in power. Power doesn't raise its voice, it doesn't chase, it doesn't explain itself. True power simply is. And the moment you stop chasing her, stop reacting, stop trying to prove anything, that's when the power dynamic flips completely. In the beginning, she had it all. Your focus, your energy, your attention. You were orbiting her, feeding her confidence, making her feel like the center of your emotional world. But then, something changed. You pulled back. You stopped responding. You let go, not with bitterness, but with clarity. And the moment you stopped feeding the system, the whole structure collapsed. That's the shift most men never see. They think power means proving something, flexing status, trying to look unbothered, while still secretly hoping for a message back. But Stoicism teaches us this: power is not performance, it's presence. It's not about being cold, it's about being in command. Emotional detachment is misunderstood. It doesn't mean you don't feel, it means you don't let your feelings run the show. You're not avoiding pain, you're mastering it. You're not showing off your strength, you're building it in silence. And when that shift happens, she feels it. She notices you're no longer available at her convenience. She sees that your energy, once fully invested in her, is now fueling something else. Your goals, your health, your purpose. That grounded, unshakable energy, it's rare. It's magnetic. Not because you're playing a game, but because you've stopped playing entirely. You're not reacting, you're reflecting. You're not chasing, you're creating. And that's when the gravity flips. She's no longer being pursued, she's wondering why you're not. Because when a man detaches with dignity, he becomes the one who's remembered, the one who's missed, the one who rises while the world watches in silence. Number 6. She watches, even in silence. She hasn't texted. She hasn't called. Her name hasn't popped up in your notifications for weeks. But don't mistake that silence for disinterest, because make no mistake, she's watching. Not openly, not with a, "Hey, I miss you," but quietly, from the shadows. She checks your stories, watches your posts, without liking, scrolls your profile through a fake account, asks mutual friends subtle questions, trying to piece together the puzzle you've left behind because you did something unexpected. You went quiet and stayed there. At first, it confused her. Then, it worried her. Now, it haunts her. You didn't play the role she predicted. You didn't spiral, chase, or beg. You didn't fall apart. You detached. Not out of spite, not to manipulate, but because you finally understood. Silence is power, and peace is proof of growth. The attention she once received from you, the validation she depended on, has disappeared. Now she finds herself looking for clues in your silence, trying to decode the calm that replaced the chaos. She wonders, is he happier without me? Does he still think of me? Did I lose something I'll never get back? But pride keeps her frozen. She can't reach out, can't admit regret. So, she watches silently, obsessively. And what she sees only deepens the ache. Because you're not performing, you're not pretending, you're simply becoming, evolving, growing stronger in her absence. And that evolution, it speaks louder than any text could. You didn't just move on, you leveled up. You shifted your energy inward. You gave yourself what you used to give her. And now she's no longer the story. She's just a page you turned. Let her watch, let her wonder. Let her sit with the silence, she thought. Wouldn't matter, because you've shown her the one truth no words could deliver, that a man who finds peace in solitude is a man no woman forgets. Number 7, scar tissue is armor. Pain doesn't just leave. It leaves a trace, a scar, a reminder etched beneath the surface of who you are. Not all pain is visible. Some of it sits silently in the chest where she walked out, and you bled quietly for someone who wouldn't even offer you a word of comfort. But here's the thing, that pain didn't destroy you, it forged you. You didn't collapse. You didn't become bitter. You became disciplined. That hollow ache you felt, it wasn't weakness. It was the start of something stronger, the beginning of your rebuild. Every scar has a story, but more than that, it's proof that you survived. Not just survived, you healed. You processed the pain. You didn't run from it. You faced it, and because of that, you became harder to manipulate, harder to break, and impossible to derail. You're no longer the man who gives his heart away recklessly. You've seen what emotional chaos can do, and you've made a vow never to return there. She thought her absence would destroy you, but it only sharpened you. It made you pause, reflect, upgrade. The man who suffered is gone. In his place now stands a version of you that is focused, composed, and quietly unshakable. This new strength doesn't yell. It doesn't seek revenge. It just exists, and it's felt by everyone around you, including her. That's the Stoic truth. Pain isn't something to hide. It's something to use. It's not your identity, it's your training. You don't wear your scars with shame. You wear them as armor, armor that was earned, not because you fought someone else, but because you fought through yourself. Now you're not angry. You're not broken. You're not the same man she left. You're better, stronger, smarter, wiser. And the moment she realizes that, the moment she sees what you've become, that's when the regret hits. And that regret, it cuts deeper than anything you could have said. Number 8, when detachment becomes desire. She expected a reaction, some spark of emotion, a trace of the man who once gave her his full heart. But instead, she got silence. Not coldness, not bitterness, just a calm detachment that confused her more than anger ever could. You didn't argue, you didn't chase, you didn't collapse into sadness. You pulled back, not to play games, but because you understood something most men never learn. Emotional detachment isn't indifference, it's mastery. You stopped explaining your worth. You stopped auditioning for someone who no longer deserved front row access to your soul. And in doing so, without a single word, you became more magnetic than ever. See, when most men feel a woman slipping away, they lean in. They overtext, they overcompensate. They try to fix what's breaking out of fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being replaced. But you leaned out. You leaned into yourself, into your discipline, your purpose. Your silence became presence, and your stillness, power. That kind of energy, it's rare, and women feel it in ways they can't explain, because you're no longer orbiting her. You're not seeking her validation. You're centered in your own world. And that shift, that change in polarity, flips the dynamic entirely. You're no longer the one chasing. You've become the one she silently watches, not because you're trying to be mysterious, but because you've become emotionally sovereign. You're grounded, unbothered, and that burns deeper than desire ever could. Now she thinks about you more than she admits. She wonders why your silence stings more than your affection ever did. She checks your profile, asks mutual friends, scrolls past your name, but stops every time. Your detachment made her curious. Your absence created space, and space is where longing is born. You're not performing, you're not pretending, you're not punishing her. You're just living fully, unapologetically, without needing her to see it. And that, my friend, is the kind of detachment that turns into desire without you lifting a single finger. Number 9, the revenge of reinvention. Revenge doesn't always wear a crown or roar in applause. Sometimes it's silent, sometimes it's unseen, and sometimes it's so profound that it doesn't need to be noticed to be felt. That's the power of reinvention. It's not about flaunting success in her face. It's not about, look what you missed. Real revenge begins the moment you stop trying to fix the version of yourself she abandoned, and instead start becoming the man you were always meant to be. At first, the transformation feels like survival. You hit the gym because pain needs a place to go. You read because your thoughts won't quiet down. You throw yourself into your mission, not to impress anyone, but because standing still burns more than the effort of moving forward. But something shifts. The fuel changes. It stops being about her. It stops being about proving anything to anyone, and becomes entirely about you. You wake up with purpose, not to post, not to flex, but because you're building something no one can take from you. A life that doesn't revolve around needing approval. And the irony, she feels it. Even if she never texts again, even if she says nothing, she senses the shift. You're not the same man she left. Not the wounded version, not the chasing version, not the confused one. He's gone. In his place stands a man who no longer needs validation, because he became it. Calm, grounded, focused. A man whose presence no longer begs to be understood. This version of you, the one born from silence and refined through suffering, hits different. Not because it's loud, but because it's true. She might realize it too late, that she never really knew the man you've become. Not this version. Not the man who rose quietly from the ashes without bitterness, without drama, without a backward glance. That's the real revenge. Not her crawling back, not her watching from the shadows, but you, not caring anymore. Not because you're cold, but because you're finally free. Reinvention isn't about erasing the past. It's about owning it, growing through it, and becoming untouchable because of it. Number 10. You were the storm, not the shelter. She once believed you were the safe place, the man who'd always say yes, always show up, always catch her when she stumbled. To her, you were comfort, predictable, the emotional safety net she could fall back on when life got hard. But here's the twist she didn't see coming. You were never the shelter. You were the storm. You just forgot for a while. When she left, a part of you cracked, but instead of collapsing, you rebuilt. Not softer, not sweeter. You didn't return to the version of yourself who waited, hoped, or begged. You became sharper, more disciplined, more detached. You stopped being the man who tolerated breadcrumbs and confusion, and you stopped making room for someone who couldn't make room for you. You no longer replied to the 1 a.m. I miss you texts. You stopped interpreting mixed signals like they were Morse code for love. You stopped waiting in the doorway of her indecision. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you powerful, because your presence isn't about pleasing anymore. It's about purpose. The man she used to know was easy to read, easy to reach. Now, you're unreadable, calm, collected, stoic. You've become a man who doesn't need to shout to be heard, because your silence echoes louder than her words ever could. You are no longer pulled into chaos. You walk away from it. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand what your peace is worth. And let's be clear, you were never her backup plan, never the maybe later. You were always something far more powerful, but she didn't realize it until you stopped showing up. Now, your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. She thought she had time. She thought you'd wait. But now, you're not looking back. You've chosen strength over sympathy, discipline over desperation, stillness over spectacle. And in that stillness, everything shifted. She feels it. She wonders. She watches silently from afar as you become the man she never truly took the time to understand. You didn't evolve for her. You evolved for you. No games, no performances, just quiet power. That's what Stoicism teaches, not to shut down emotions, but to refuse being controlled by them. You are no longer reactive. You're deliberate, focused, untouchable. She expected you to break. Instead, you rose. You were never the shelter. You were the storm. And now that you remember who you are, you'll never go back to being her safety net. Let her wonder. Let her regret. Let her feel the silence she created because you've got better things to do, a better life to build, and a better man yourself to become. Losing yourself wasn't the downfall, it was the spark. The silence she left you in became your sanctuary. She expected you to spiral, to chase, to beg, but instead you rebuilt, you rose. Now she watches unsure, haunted by the quiet you left behind. Let her wonder. Let her sit with the absence she created. You've got better things ahead, a better path, a stronger purpose, and a man forged from discipline, not desperation. You don't rise to prove her wrong. You rise to prove yourself right, and that's the difference between revenge and reinvention. You're not the man who waits. You're the man who moves forward sharp, silent, unshakable. If this message hit you where it matters, don't leave in silence. Tap the like button to show you're rising. Subscribe for more content that cuts through the noise. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next, and drop a comment below. I don't chase, I rise. Welcome to the Stoic couple, where silence isn't weakness, it's power.